Hello and welcome. These are horse racing selections for Thursday, the 3rd of April. I am flatcapcallum and I'm hoping you are all very, very well. Alright, it's the first day of the Aintree Grand National Festival. I have got one horse from Aintree and with it 3 from Nace. I really spent quite a bit of time looking at that Nace card. And I got a horse at Chelmsford. There are 5 in today's bet. The total outlay is 11.75. So we've had a 4-horse bet this week, a 3-horse bet, and now we're on a 5-horse bet. Who knows what Friday will bring? So we do a review and then we'll get on to the bet. So review of Wednesday. We've managed to go back-to-back nice days and winners both days. So our man Mason, what an absolute ledge. If you didn't watch the race, I would suggest you want to watch that race, and that is a jockey that wants to win races. Same thing happened with Destinado on the weekend. He's decent. So we will follow with interest. I cannot believe now, after this little run he's been on, it's not going to get picked up and there'll be some sort of article in the Racing Post to say, oh, he's up and coming and he's won all these rides and whatever. But yeah, he's in an absolute hot streak of getting horses, over the line. So yeah, very pleased with that. Only annoyance is the second day in a row, there's a horse that the odds trimmed, so I put it at 16s when I did the video. 12s was the fair price afterwards. You could have got 20s with 365. The day before it was Candy Warhol that was 28s with 365. I had to take 14s for the channel. So anyone doing 365 the last 2 days, you are definitely winning out on this. Then King of the Jungle was creditable 3rd, and then Bunker Boy. The race went down to 4 runners. And the outsider of them, arguably the one that had the best form at shorter distances. It wasn't necessarily the race was run at super slow pace, but yeah, often that can be the case when you've got middle distance races and they go down to such fiddly little numbers. So it was a bit of a funny ride really, that Bunker Boy. I thought in the straight was going to get a bit nearer than he actually did. So bit of a disappointment, but at least we were in the position that we could have been talking about a couple of hundred had he got over the line, but he was a fairly distant 3rd. So 7 on 1568 1568 back. So 2 days in a row we have doubled our money. So we are sat for the week 20 up, which is nice because I think we've only had 1 week like that where I've talked about that of the 7 week. We're in 7 weeks. This is the 8th week, I think. So yeah, back to back, nice days. Very good. And the win strike rate, it obviously is good on paper. But as a reminder, Galileo Glass was not a starred horse, therefore will not be included in my overall stats that I talk about when I talk about starred horses. It is true to say, I think I put this in the review. The last 10 horses we put up on the all-weather, 4 winners, 2 places, 4 dots. So it's a really nice little streak there. Particularly when, for those of you who've been around sort of back end of last year, really unusually for me, I struggled massively on the all-weather September, October, November, December, which is normally somewhere where there's pretty safe territory for me. So that's in the history of the channel, but also way before that. So yeah, at least it's sort of coming back around again, because this is the time of year that normally the all-weather I struggle with. But there we go. All right. So let me talk you through the 5-horse bet, because it's level of complication in terms of how I've done the staking plan, and I will try and explain why. But the crux of it is there are 5 horses, and 2 of them were the scrapiest of scrapiness for me to get them to the threshold. They came out at the same point. So I was either just going to leave it and do the Trixie with basically the best 3, and I've decided I'll put them in, and we've got a Canadian on the 5, a small price one, and then a Trixie on the 3 ones that were not as scrapey. That being said, none of them were like far over the line. So what am I talking about? Here we go. So 3 at Nace. Yeah, I really like the meeting at Nace. There's 3 20-runner maidens, so I had a right good rifle through those. There's 3 20-runner handicap hurdles. I had a right rifle through those, and the bumper. And yeah, there's some interesting things in basically I found in all the races. But as far as channel goes, I got 3 to put on. So 2:35. We're starting in the third of the maidens, and we're going Nesca Blue 40s. It's a 20-runner maiden playing 3 places. It's not the most exciting from a place terms, is there? Because we need it to come top 3 and there's 20 runners, right? So that's not ideal. I made it outside the front 2 that are in the market are considerably the better 2, I would say, on paper. This has got the third best piece of form as I look at the form. It ran much better last time on better ground on 2 miles. And so, yeah, a repeat of that with nothing pulling up any trees elsewhere, it should be competing for, third, fourth, fifth place. Whether or not it's good enough to turn over the next 2 and jolt improvement, don't know. Another interesting thing on this horse is it's trained by Dennis Hogan and ridden by Daniel King. And on Tuesday, they sent out 2 horses to Limerick, both won maidens. So yeah, I mean, albeit shorter prices than what this one is, but yeah, two horses in the maidens at Limerick, and they won them both. So it's not unheard of for them to have a maiden winner. I think we've had 4 in total this jump season of the ones who've turned out, which is better than they normally would do. So yeah, the 20 runners is absolutely a negative, but it's even though that factor does get factored in what I do, and it came out good enough for the channel. So Nesca Blue 40-1. We've then got one of the scrapey ones, the 420 Nace Arnacore 50-1. These 2 scrapey ones need a bit of leap of faith, basically. So it's the O'Dwyer's horse. I forget it's Charlie O'Dwyer's the jockey. I forget what the trader called, but the O'Dwyer's. And yeah, last time it didn't really achieve much at Leopardstown. And I think it was the one. It was run 2 runs since it had a year off, and basically this is the time of year when previously it was running as a much better horse in the spring summertime on better ground. So it will find better ground than what it did at Leopardstown. I think that Leopardstown one looked competitive enough. So I'm hoping basically here the change of course, the summer ground, and is what might perk it up, as well as a few extra furlongs on it. It looks to me like a horse that might benefit from going a little bit further than 2 miles. And what you have at Nace is quite like a bit of an uphill incline towards the end. So it's a bit it's a 2 mile free, but it's a bit more of a test as well. So we're clutching a little bit. I'm not. It's certainly not a worldie, is it? You want it to get back to the form from 2 years ago, but I think it's worth chancing because of the 50-1 price point in a race that's pretty crappy, to be honest. For what's on offer. So then we've got 440 Aintree, 1 horse at Aintree today. Calico. It's a Skelton horse. 10-1, I think it's a good price for that horse. It's not appeared to be at its best this season, but it wouldn't be the first time a Skelton horse not appeared to be at its best and then go and run well in a valuable handicap. So sometimes running in a handicap's one thing, but when it's a valuable one like this one, first start of the season at Cheltenham, it did run and win a nice valuable handicap. It's only 2 points in the £2 heavier, technically speaking, in the handicap weights for that. It ran at Doncaster last time. I think it was 3rd. It ran in that corresponding race 2 years ago before coming to Aintree Festival and running a really decent race behind John Bomb before falling in the Maghall Novice Chase. So they're sort of gone with a similar prep at Doncaster, albeit last time 2 years ago it won that race and then went and ran on this one. Here, you don't necessarily want to win that race if you want to win the valuable handicap, because your handicap mark will then get slightly altered down, but it did run a reasonable enough race last time at Doncaster. So yeah, my view is once they got that first win off the bat, I think this has been the target for this horse. And we know that Skelton's can be a bit of a targety trainer. So it does need to show that it's sort of better than the last few runs, but it's got it in the bag. And that race behind John Bond when it fell, I mean, it's hard to know. It was a 4 or 5 runner thing, but it was clearly the second best horse, and it wasn't a million miles away from John Bond there. So that is what we're going with. And then we're going 4:55 Nace, the other scrapey one, John McConnell horse. A similar-ish profile in that we want it to really get back to the form from a couple of years ago. Better ground. It's also had a layoff, same as this one. And last time they ran it, it was midfield, but it was heavy going, which wouldn't have been its preference. So I absolutely expect it to come on from there. And it's handicapped to run a really nice race from 2 years ago form in spring on decent ground. So that's the leap of faith on that one. And then we're finishing off in the conditional jockey race at Chelmsford. Obviously, as mentioned, no Mason Patel for this one, but cracking filly. It's a really competitive race, and I wouldn't be surprised if that horse gets bigger. So I think 16s is good value for a 4-place race on that one. I'm not in love with the fact that Ben Sanderson's riding. I'd rather have somebody who is basically either more familiar to the trainer. I think he's ridden twice for Dean Aintree, or someone who's got a few pounds to take off in a race like that. That being said, it's got really solid form at Chelmsford. Even last time, it didn't quite get the rub of the green. It sort of went for a gap and then lurched if you watch back the race. So yeah, I think it's handicapped. It's, you know, I think I read, where did I read it? These things are always helpful. It was Racing Post, I think it says, the filly's on the decline. That's the kind of stuff I really like. When I look at that and I look at the form and I go, I'm not sure that is the case. It's definitely not as good as what it was when it ran kind of in maidens a couple of years ago. I mean, it ran in a maiden at Chelmsford, and I looked at the race. I think it was 6th, and it was something like the horse. Check this out. It ran in maiden 2 years ago at Chelmsford. I think it was 6th, and the horse that was behind it in 7th was Wonderwall, that went and won the Fox Hunters at Cheltenham. So yeah, that was 2 years ago. So I hadn't quite clocked that Wonderwall was midfield in a Chelmsford maiden, and 2 years later it's winning the Fox Hunters at Cheltenham over 3 mile whatever. So there we go. That's it. So the bet. It's often when I do 5-horse bets, and I haven't done many so far this year, I try to do the complicated version. I've tried to do the easy version because I've got other complications. So move my hands. 10p each way Canadian on the 5s. So that's basically 5.20 each way, doubles, trebles, fourfold and fivefold. So that's your dreamy Bahamas bet for you. So that's the 10p each way Canadian. Much more than that, and bookies probably wouldn't take the bet. And then the 3 that are not the scrapey ones, so they're not great, but they're not scrapey. I'm really selling this, aren't I? Nesca Blue, Calico and Cracking Filly. They're all underlined. They are the 25p each way Trixie, so that's £2. That makes 7.20, so that's legs 1, 3 and 5. And then single wise, we've got 50p each way on Nesca Blue and Cracking Filly. I know this is annoying, but it in my head, in my sort of slightly obsessive compulsive anal way, this adds up to 25p, which is what I want all the bets to do. So the scrapey ones are 45p each way singles. You do whatever makes your life easier, right, folks? That's what I'm telling you for the channel. So 45p each way singles, Arnacore and Tango Theatre. And we've got a 75p win single on Calico. On that Calico race, Sky are an extra place, but everything else is basically the same. Avoid, Bet, Victor and Labrooks. 11.75. That is the bet. All right. What was going to say? I won't go into this now. I might do it another video, but as often is the case when we have a bet like we did yesterday, where we were on for winning potential a few hundred on the last leg, people ask questions about cash outs. It's the normal thing. I've written a fairly short but hopefully understandable reply in a comment on the review from the video, the last video. But the kind of the main point that it's always important for people to say is, whenever you're offered a cash out, So let's imagine it was 50. You were offered a cash out 50 quid. You always need to work out what you've already guaranteed to win. So it always sounds more exciting if it's 50 quid. And you might go back and go, well, hang on, I've already worked 125 quid from the fact that that one's won and that one's placed and they're rolling on. So you're actually only being offered £25 by the bookmaker, not £50. They're saying £50 cash out this bet, but you're guaranteed 25 anyway. So it's quite a useful thing to try and get your head that whenever there is a cash out, minus off what you're already guaranteed. Personally, I never ever cash out unless I've done a bet, and I've said this before, unless I've done a bet deliberately with the view that I wanted to cash it out because I think there's such extraordinary value in the price. I might put a bet on, and I might put a bet on with a view to cash out if it's a bookmaker that allows. Not all bookmakers do great cash outs, but if you've made a profit before the race goes, sometimes you can cover the fact that you put what you put on your stake. I'm not advising that as a strategy because you kind of really need to know what you're doing. So it's not what I'm not saying do that gung ho on any of my selections. I do that on occasion. But yeah, minus off what you're already guaranteed to win before you work out the cash out. Generally speaking, if you're betting in a few quid and you're going to win 25, you're getting £25 out of the cash out, why would you bother? But if it was going to roll on to £300-400, because unless you really need the cash, which most people, if they're already betting in a few quid, don't necessarily need the 20 quid back urgently. And if you do, you probably shouldn't be betting that amount of money in the first place. Advice, take it or leave it. But yeah, when you're getting into the cash out is a few £100, depending on what your personal financial situation is, you may well decide that is something that's sensible for you to do. But if you do that every single time, you've got to bear in mind and you've got to accept that all of the chances of you winning are big are all completely dreamy, because even if you can cash out 10 times and it might work out that the last leg goes down, there will be eventually a bet where the last leg goes in, and that will probably be worth far more than the 10 times you cashed out. So make cash outs based on the fact that you won't truly understand how much more the bookmaker is actually offering you rather than the actual face value of what it looks like, and make sure that you make a decision that's right for you personally, financially, but try never to get sucked into the it will never happen or that kind of stuff. But that's what I'm saying to you, folks. All right, that'll be me. I will be back Thursday night for Friday for Aintree. We'll see if we've got any more than the one horse. I did go through every single race at Aintree, and there are things where I've got a view on a race and things, but to be honest, I didn't want to just go through it all and tell you all of my leans and things, because then if I do that, I might as well put a bet out, because I know a bunch of people then will follow those selections. And what I'm trying to do here, particularly this year, is if I'm mentioning a horse, it's basically a bet. That's what I'm doing, unless it's anti-post. I don't want to mention horses that I'm not putting on the channel, but I'm just mentioning them. I've done it before, and it's sort of it all gets a bit muddly and stuff. So yeah, I could go through and mark your card for Aintree, but the point being, if they're not hitting the star system, then they're really just my viewpoint, and I might put a few tokens on myself, but it'd be far less than what I'm doing for my main bets. That's all I would say to you. All right, that is me. I will see you in the next video. Thank you very much. Bye bye.